work for a company called Develop Training Limited as a trainer assessor. Before we get into this, is that in thinking about what we were going to do here, I'd like you to imagine you are on a level 2 water technology course. But what I've done is I've picked the part that relates to the domestic situation. So, and it applies to everyone that's here, is that as long as they live in houses, is that you'll be able to respond to this. Okay? So, what we're going to do, we're going to look at domestic water use, and we're going to look at the flow pattern away from the houses in which we live. Okay? So, these are the areas I'm going to comment about, because this is how we use water at home. And then beyond that is how it appears and arrives in a drainage system that will be alongside your house. Now, this I'm going to be asking some questions about, and this area here, there is a little exercise that I would like you to do. But all the information I'm going to give to you first. Okay, let's look first of all at the water use in the house. Okay, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but is that the key in this, and that is why there's a little container here. Now, that's a 1 litre container. And in terms of accounting for water, is that each and every one of us accounts for 150 litres of water every 24 hours. Now that's quite a lot, really. And you imagine that starts life in a standard that you're able to drink, which we call potable water. And if you imagine there was 150 of those on the table, it's a lot of water, I think you'll find. Okay. But we use it in different ways. And first of all is that what we actually flush down the toilet in our houses amounts to 33% of this 150 litres. In terms of drinking and food preparation, that amounts to some 18%. Bathing and washing amounts to a quarter, 25%. Laundry is 12%. Washing up, the most popular task in the house, amounts to 9%. And cars and gardens comes in at 3%. So, of these, there has been various campaigns to reduce these in some way, shape or form, because we live on a relatively small island and there's a lot of us, over 60 million, and if we reduce the amount of water we use domestically in the home, it will enable us to stay apace with the resource to actually get it to our houses in the first place. So, if I mention one activity that's been done, you may have one of these in your house already. In terms of using the water closet, or WC, or toilet as we call it, is that there has been systems evolved that reduce the amount of water depending upon the function of the toilet. Duo flush is one. You may have one already in your house as it is. Okay. But ladies, one for you here. Let me ask you, food preparation amounts to some 18%. How do you think you could reduce the amount of water that is used in food preparation? Question to you.
Buy them ready prepared.
Buy them ready prepared. Yes, and in fact, over time, this figure has come down slightly because we actually buy a lot more prepared food that you can move straight into cooking.
I do.
You
It's
do.
taking it a bit far buying ready grated cheese though, so. I do it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we go over to bathing and washing, there was a big campaign by the National Water Council to encourage the use of showers. Most houses have showers fitted rather than taking baths, because it's found that you actually use less water by operating a shower than filling a bath to a certain level, which is different to everybody, of course. Now, one area that's going the wrong way is laundry. In other words, and why would you think that is so? Why?
Families get bigger and more washing as well.
Yeah, it is a, yes, it may be a function of size, but I would suggest to you...
Because I do lots of washing, it's
Yeah.
like this. But I think my house, they'll put it in the wash, even if I've only worn it the once, so there's nothing wrong with it.
You're not doing the sniff test.
If you look at us as a whole, is that you'll find is as our standard of living gets steadily better and better, so the more washing we do. And therefore it's difficult to reduce this figure, because years ago, in my mum's day, God rest her soul, is that she would probably traditionally wash on a Monday. But now, with washing machines and so forth, is that you'll find the washing machine is perhaps on more than just Monday. But technology has helped here, because the modern day washing machine in fact uses far less water than a machine that was constructed 20-30 years ago. Okay.
Going to the bathing and washing, I was watching a kids programme the other day, because my niece was round, and they were showing how everybody, well, there's awful lot of people that brush their teeth with the tap running.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how much it actually wastes. Yeah?
Yeah. It is, you're right to focus in there, is that just small amounts.
Yeah, you could help it.
Yeah, small amounts has overall a very large effect. Okay, washing up 9%. I mean, in many houses, washing up is still done by hand. But of course, most ladies would certainly advocate the use of the dishwasher. And would you think the dishwasher uses more water than hand washing?
No, I'd say, no, all I don't know.
Okay.
No, I don't know, I'll take that back.
Well, I would suggest definitely a yes to that.
That's how it does.
Yes. Okay, the last area is cars, washing cars and gardens. Not so much a problem with cars, because if they're hand wash, that's two 2.5 litre buckets of water by hand. It's not too bad. The garden, though, can have a significance here. And what do you think has happened in terms of the domestic use to reduce the amount of water that we use in the garden?
They've stopped, they put a ban on hoses as well, haven't they?
There can be a ban on hoses, yes.
The weather?
Okay. Think about when it's raining, where does the rain fall on the top of the house?
On the roof.
On the roof. And where does the water go from the roof? Instead of putting it straight into the drain, in fact the water companies have had quite a campaign where you can buy a water butt and save this water.
A lot of people used to have them.
Yes. Well, there
I
has
know a lot in
been...
my family used to have them.
So one area there to reduce the amount of water used in the garden is you can capture your own roof water and then put it onto the garden. One of the reasons why this is sensitive, going back to our 150 litres per person per day, is the fact that this is, if it had water in it, it would be of drinking water quality. So if you're just going to put that straight on the garden, which would just have ordinary drainage water, then you're paying for an expensive commodity that you're not using. Okay, let's move from the water. You'll need to remember this 150 litres. Okay. Now, I'm going to draw a graph here because is that if you plot the amount of water that you use against a 24-hour period, it forms a particular flow pattern. I'll draw it in. Which has this quite important name of diurnal flow pattern. Diurnal means two, almost back to Spanish. Okay, and what it's saying is this: the 150 litres that we all use is that if you take town by town, village by village, is we all have a maximum usage somewhere in the early morning. If this is a 24-hour period, this is midday, somewhere about 8 o'clock in the morning, this drainage water peaks. It drops away, and then when we all come home from work, or when the kids come home from school, or people start thinking about tea time, is that there is a peak again. Now, this double peak, when we come on to the next stage, and if you were on this course with the water technicians, they would have to go on to understand what happens to it when we come around to treatment processes, is multiplied up, because if you imagine if this was a single household, and you move then to a road, and then you move to a town, especially the size of Milton Keynes, this would have a great significance in terms of the amount of water that we've got to treat before we can process it. Now, the things that actually affect this diurnal pattern are the work-life balance. So if you're in a community that is largely in work, that will affect the shape of this. The type of dwelling that you would live in. If you live in an end-of-terraced townhouse, this pattern might be quite different from a 4-bedroomed village house with a large garden and so forth. That all changes depending upon that. And the last thing at the bottom, which is a point that you've made already, is that the size of the family. So the more people in the house, the bigger the use. Okay. Now, in order to build on this knowledge, what I'd like you to do, please, is contain on this piece of paper, which actually is used as an assessment. Okay.
Oh, blimey, Simon.
All right.
I'm going to need a fag after this.
Can you please indicate on the graph the correct shape of the flow pattern? Secondly to that, what are the two axes? So along the bottom, that's good, yes, and up the side. It's the amount of water that people use.
Still don't know.
What is the pattern called? Okay, and what, just need to call one factor that affects the shape of this graph. Okay, that's good. I think that's it.
I just couldn't think of that side one.
I couldn't remember how you
Head, I
spelled
remember
it.
reading something like heading or something.
Oh.
Head.
No, that's
I don't know.
yeah. If you wrote in amount there, it would be fine.
Oh, just an
Oh,
hour.
then I've got a mount.
Summary then. In the short time with me, what we've looked at is the domestic water use, the all-important 150 litres that we all account for, the makeup, how it's used and what can be done to review its use. Then we've looked at how it comes to us, the pattern of the flow is that what influences that, you've just done a little exercise that recalls that information. Once we've done this, is that we can then go on as a function of this particular session and go on and look at pollution loads that go with this.